Thank you, and it seems appropriate to give the the floor now to Peter Bakker, who is the president of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and of course, this is we hope a way to to round up and channel some of the points made during today's conference and. Maybe also provide us with some hope for the future. Could you do that, please, Peter Bakker?
Yeah, after all this, we can use some hope, right? So, hi, I'm Peter. I'm Dutch. I live and work in Switzerland. It's amazing to be here. Thank you to the foundation. It's an amazing place where so many historic debates must have happened, and it's the second most important event today in Stockholm, but certainly the cooler place you found. I'll nuance my comments in a minute. What I want to do is talk about the language of risks and opportunities. I want to take the perspective of business. It was said I'm with the World Business Council of Sustainable Development, so we take a view. But I sometimes wish that we could be all astronauts, because if you talk to astronauts, I don't know if any of you have ever done that, these people come home after their travels with what is called the overview effect. And the overview effect has three phenomena. They've all been outside of our planet, and at some point they were looking out of the window or flying around space and looked at planet Earth, and they see three things. It's a very small blue ball in a big black darkness. There is no second planet, we only have one. The second thing they see when they're able to look onto the Earth is they see land, they see water, but they see no borders. So all the complications of gridlock and national politics and the UN being effective or not are just not visible from there. The third thing, and that's the most important thing for today, they see is a paper thin layer, white light blue layer around this ball called our planet, which is the atmosphere. And that atmosphere is the only thing that keeps us human beings and all other life alive. And you know, when you're standing here on the ground, you're watching up, you think, oh well, a little bit of emissions, what can be the problem? If you watch from down there, it's ridiculous how we treat this planet. Unfortunately, we cannot all be astronauts or being given the opportunity to travel to space to take this view. Most of us will have to come to Stockholm and listen to the IPCC. Of course, it is the most important event in Stockholm today, the launch of the actual best science view of what is going on with the planet. But this cartoon does no respect to the deep work that is going on in there, but it does do respect to, if I may say, the joke the IPCC makes of communicating the importance of this message. I don't know how many of you are connected to the internet in this room, but if you do, go to the website of the IPCC and try to make sense of what announcement was made today. I'm in this space for 2 years now. I've been on the website. I just cannot find what they're trying to tell me. And yet, it's one of the most important messages that they're trying to tell humanity out there. And that's why I'm here. And of course, I will easily be convinced by Dennis that this is the most important event going on in Stockholm, because what the GROI, if I got that right, is trying to do is create a language that brings this enormous source of scientific knowledge to the world in a language that we actually can hear, understand, and hopefully also act upon. Because action is certainly needed. We look at the world as a world which is in systemic crisis. The mistake we make is we try to fix each of the crises on a standalone basis, whether it's conflict, whether it's the economy, whether it's the euro, whether it's climate or any other. But we're in a systemic crisis, and this picture I thought was a beautiful symbolization of it. You know, we build alternative energies, but we keep driving more miles in fossil fuel-based transport vehicles. And until we start thinking through the matter holistically, we don't solve the systemic problem that we have. The other thing that we need to do is we really need to think about scaling up the solutions. I represent business. The World Business Council in Sustainable Development has 200 large global companies as their members. They are members on a voluntary basis, and we drive them as hard as we can to bring real solutions to some of the sustainability challenges that our society faces. But all of these members and all other companies out there beyond them have CSR programs and are serious about some of these things. But if we add all the CSR programs in the world up, the scientific trends, as Johan Rockström is educating us constantly, are still moving everywhere in the wrong direction. So we need more scale, bigger action to be implemented. So at WBCSD, and I apologize for this slide, I had promised myself never to bring slides with text anymore, but this one slipped through. We're trying to do two things. The business that gets it, what can we do to make them do more? How can we help them scale up? The business who do not yet get it, how can we get them involved? And that's the horizontal axis. Let me start with the vertical axis. The companies that get it, what are they going to do to scale up the solutions that they have? 3 years ago, we published a document, some of you will have seen it, it's called Vision 2050. You can still download it. It's for the first time that global business has said the society or the economy as we run it today is not sustainable. We need to change course and we need to radically transform almost everything. The problem with the Vision 2050 is it's too far out. So what we're doing now is how do we move from this Vision 2050, which is a vision of a sustainable world, to an action plan, an agenda for 2020. And we've decided let's move away from the emotional, almost religious debates about which scientists do we believe or not. Let's just talk to many of them. And we've used Johan's and the Stockholm Resilience Center's planetary boundary framework as our base model. And we've worked through the SRC with hundreds of scientists worldwide to review the Vision 2050 and to make a map of what are the crucial planetary and societal stress points that we should address and find solutions for by 2020. Out of all this science-based work, we've selected 9 priority areas, and you'll be pleased to know today that climate change is on number 1 of the priority areas that business must address and bring solutions for to the table. 4 other natural capital ones and a number of social capital ones, all equally relevant, many equally pressing, but today, of course, climate change get the headlight. Out of each of these priority areas, we have now designed what we call must-haves, call them societal targets for 2020. What must society have done by 2020 to avoid disaster and keep us on track to 2050? For climate change, 1 trillion tons of carbon cumulative has been agreed. 2 degrees has been taken as the basis. And for each of these priority areas, similar goals have been addressed. The picture on the screen is actually coincidental because I used it before. But if you haven't read this book and you're interested in climate change, I would advise you to pick it up. The Burning Question is a good book to understand both climate change and the momentum in the energy system, the global energy system, and to see what challenges that will face us. And similar things to what Nick Robbins said, half of the oil's reserves in oil and coal and gas, we should not really want to burn. And how do we avoid us from doing that? So we've taken science, we've created 9 priority areas, we've set ourselves 9 societal goals, and now for each goal, for each area, we are creating business solutions. And these are not concepts, these are measurable, scalable, replicable, and beyond business as usual solutions that we're seeking out. Secondly, business alone cannot save the world. We need to have close collaboration with governments. There may be gridlock, there may be a need for a new UN, but we must find ways to work with regulators around the world to scale up solutions. I think the order of play is shifting though. The way we look at the moment in our relations to governments is business will have to step forward with large scalable solutions. Governments must be fast followers in providing regulatory regimes which will incentivize as much business as possible to scale up and implement at speed. That's the way that we're going to create momentum. There's loads of ideas, more than 40 big ideas are floating around. You see some of them on the board here, and I would expect in the next 3 months we will be publishing and showing action plans going forward. We, like I said, are not interested in warm talk and concepts. It should really be actionable plans, commitments from companies to implement, and measurement against those commitments on what are the effects of those implementations. At the end of the all, 50 ideas are not enough to save the world. This will become a science-based platform where all businesses in the world can attach their efforts onto, and together we should move this forward. The question you always get asked is, well, what is the business case? There are business cases for climate positive things. One is it makes perfect sense to be fuel efficient, to be resource productive. But to implement some of the big solutions, business cases may not be there if we are not able to change the way we measure the economics of a business case. And that's where the bottom line of this effort comes in. We need to change the rules of how we run our economies. And the far extreme of that will be we need to go to EP&Ls, as Puma has already done. We need to rethink how do we value businesses. But the steps in between will look at how do we run the governance, what risk management frameworks do we use. And that's where GROI is going to prove such a powerful partner. Any business, any large listed company in the world will use a risk assessment and risk management framework. The most well-known framework in the world is called the COSO framework. Any listed company publishes an annual report with a risk paragraph in it, which is described how you would actually disclose the risk the company has. The problem in those disclosure rules is only financial risks are asked to be disclosed. None of the sustainability risks are there. Some companies do, most companies don't. If we make it a rule that every company does, we would be closer to a better world. Nick Robbins and in some ways Nick Silver have been very eloquently speaking about the ways that markets deal with risks. At the core of it all, how does a market value a company? By discounting its cash flows of the future to a value of today. Discounting means a risk-weighted reduction to dollars or euros of today. There is a risk approach in the markets. It is just not tuned to sustainability yet. Again, an area where the GROI can help. Insurance, Nick Silver has talked about it, is precisely the same thing. If I listened well to Nick's story, the climate risk today would be uninsurable. If I talk to some of our member companies, Honda is a great example. An assembly line in the south of Thailand has been hit by floods 2 consecutive years. Their insurance company has now said this plant is no longer insurable because the risk and the impact of that flood is just too high. Honda now has to make a trade-off. Do we stay here and run the risk and self-insure, or do we take the cost of moving? That part of discussions will get stronger and stronger in business. So I think GROI is a beautiful tool already today because it translates very complex science into understandable language that ordinary people and business people can understand. But why I'm here is to express the hope that together with the foundation, together with some of the other parties speaking today, we can really develop this to a tool that measures risk at country level, at sector level, and even at individual company level, so that all the great knowledge that people like Johan and others in the world are sharing with us can be translated into action. And if we get that done, we'll start a momentum, a movement of business solutions at scale, partly because people do not want to be bitten by the risk, partially because people see opportunities to avoid those risks, and then we will be getting a lot closer to saving the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter Bakker. And can I just ask you one thing? So have you also set the same kind of goals and objectives for the council per se?
What kind of calls the
No, I mean for the
the companies? No, not yet. We first want to try to agree, for instance, all the energy companies in the world to an energy and or climate target. Then we will start breaking it down into either sectors, sometimes individual companies. The problem is if you start pushing forward-thinking companies too far forward, you will cause resistance that is not going to help you.
But I also meant for the council.
For ourselves.
For yourselves, do you have like
No, there's
recruiting, seeing so many new companies to join, or do you have the same kind of measurable?
I've stopped playing the number game, if I'm honest. I think I'm very new to the sustainability space. It's an amazing space, you know. I traveled 3 times more since I'm in this job than I was when I was a CEO of a global company, because there are so many sustainability things going on around the world. And we all say, yeah, but we reach out to all these people and we touch so many people and therefore these miles are all worth it. But actually all of you already get it. So it's great to be here, but the CO2 benefits, cost-benefit analysis is not so strong. I do think we should measure ourselves and we should set targets, but the target for me is more in, can we find new ways to collaborate with other associations, the GRI or the Global Foundation or other associations, rather than trying to create big numbers that show that we are the most important association in the world? Because even if we were, we would never be big enough to deal with all the issues ourselves.
Are there more questions to Peter Bakker?